What do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well-aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece. Hey, you. What do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece. What do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece. What do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece. What do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece.
That's going well thus far. You see, it's interest by any.
It's a nice setup, though, huh?
Come around.
It is.
I think it's, huh?
It is.
Yeah, and before the...
Good afternoon, Excellencies, dear Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, and let me start by thanking Minister Panayotopoulos for initiating and hosting this roundtable on the European Defence Cooperation. And at the same time, indeed, I would like to thank the Ministers of Defence of Slovenia, of Cyprus, and with us virtually through video messages will be also the Defence Minister of Portugal. Now, speaking from a Brussels perspective, I see two very, I would say, divided camps or two schools of thought on the topic of European defence cooperation. You have some who underline that more has been achieved on European defence since 2016 than ever before, while others impatiently ask when they can finally see and perhaps touch new European capabilities jointly planned, jointly produced and operated by several member states. And I think that we all know that the capability development is not a sprint but a marathon run. And when we speak of cooperative capability development, one could even compare it to an Ironman challenge or triathlon, and we cannot lose neither focus or patience. The starting point of the EU defence initiatives was the global strategy in 2016, which confirmed Europe's heightened ambition to become a trusted and credible security provider. Based on this, the EU defence initiatives, the Coordinated Annual Review on Defence, the Permanent Structured Cooperation, PESCO, and the European Defence Fund were brought to life. Over the years, all of these initiatives have made a good progress, I would say. CARD, the Coordinated Annual Review on Defence, maps out the European defence landscape and serves as a pathfinder for cooperative opportunities. And last year, European Defence Agency, together with the EU military staff, successfully completed the very first full CARD cycle, which provided a comprehensive set of recommendations on how to connect research and technology, capability development, the industrial dimension, and operational perspective. Thanks to the more binding commitments, PESCO makes it possible to develop projects which will progressively ensure that national planning cycles converge. Now more than 40 PESCO projects have been launched, with the first project, the Lithuania-led Cyber Rapid Response Team, having achieved the full operational capability just a few weeks ago. And finally, the European Defence Fund complements this framework by providing financial support to strengthen the European defence technological and industrial base. And the European Commission published the first 23 EDF calls for proposals on the 30th June this year, for a total budget of 1.2 billion euro. And I'm particularly proud of the role of the European Defence Agency in setting up an implementation of EU defence initiatives, ensuring coherence with NATO, and especially also by aligning priorities with those set in our capability development plan. From my point of view, the major challenge of the EU defence initiatives is that they require a complete change of mindset and the way we deal with defence cooperation at EU level. Obviously, it has required major efforts from national administrations and from the EU entities supporting you. Time is needed for member states to adapt progressively their national defence capability plans to the new structures in place. And I should here emphasize that actually Greece is in a way a role model in that respect. And this is also being reflected in the quite high success in getting financial support for various projects led by Greece. That being said, member states have already started implementing CARD recommendations. France expressed its willingness to facilitate the defense in space focus area. The Netherlands informed that they are very close together with Germany to engage on military mobility, and we need to keep this political momentum now, and we need to keep the discussion alive. So, as I said at the start of my intervention, I'm speaking from a Brussels perspective. However, the real success of the European defense initiatives and of more integration in defense is in more general depends on member states. Capabilities are not made in Brussels. Capabilities are made in member states. And your ownership, therefore, is vital. As the Chief Executive of the European Defence Agency, which is an intergovernmental agency at the service of all member states, I can only assure you that we are here to listen and indeed to support and propose and implement whatever member states ask us to do. Now, I have the pleasure to open the ministerial debate, and I would therefore like to invite ministers to give first their assessment of the European defence initiatives, the progress made so far, as well as their effectiveness in terms of attaining the EU ambition as a credible security and defence provider. And after the first round, we will have also a video message from Commissioner Breton. So indeed, I would like now to start with the Greek Defence Minister. Please, Minister Panayotopoulos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yuri, and I'll try to make a brief opening statement. Dear colleagues, dear Matei, dear Haralambos, dear Chief Executive of the EDA, dear Yuri, Your Excellencies, General Chiefs of Staff, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, being optimistic by nature, I would say that I like to see the glass as half full and not half empty. So right from the outset, I would say that we've come a long way on a European perspective. We've done a lot, but we cannot rest on our laurels. We cannot rest reassured. We must strive to do a lot more. A few years ago, the notion of a common European policy on defense would seem unimaginable. Now we are doing PESCO projects together, different countries binding together, collaborating together. We are doing an annual review of the state of play in the coordinated annual review of defense. We have the EDA in place. We have the EDIDP assisting and working on proposals by countries and private companies on defense to join together and produce defense-related projects covering needs, requirements, enhancing capabilities. So that's not something that should be scorned as a result. It's a great result, but we can only do better from that. And in that, I must say how happy I am to have all of you here in Athens, in Live-Defea, after such a long time, especially having the chief, actually, of the EDA is an additional incentive for us to engage in this conversation. My good friend Yuri, I think that your role is very important on the European defense project. In a certain way, you are the binding factor or the glue that can bring us all together in further developing our defense capabilities. Well, we'll be celebrating 40 years since our accession in the EU, so we have to take stock of what's happened thus far with respect to developing our defense capabilities within the European framework. As I said, European defense cooperation is key in achieving the European Union level of ambition. What is even more important is that Europe slowly but steadily is developing a notion of its strategic autonomy. It's not contradictory to NATO's initiatives, but I think it's complementary. And in that respect, I have to congratulate the Portuguese presidency, which ended a month ago, in pushing forward this drive towards realizing what strategic autonomy is about, and also encourage, and I'm very optimistic on that as well, the Slovenian presidency and my good friend Matej in that respect in pushing forward this notion even further. And I'm pretty confident that this will be the case in an organized manner, so that we'll be able soon enough, once we have some sort of a draft devised, to move on to the next stage and produce a text that defines what Europe's strategic autonomy is about. And a necessary precondition for that is to acknowledge, describe, and take stock of all the complex and different security challenges, threats and challenges that affect us all. Throughout the length and width of the European Union, a variety of threats, a variety of challenges, from hybrid, high-tech, conventional, not so conventional. If we acknowledge and take all this into consideration, then we will arrive at a pretty fair and solid conclusion on how we should move forward. Now, last November, we had a council decision on the participation of third countries. That's a breakthrough of sorts. Every country that had its well-founded reservations found a way to move ahead, arrive to a consensus. That is what Europe is about, actually. Europe has come forward through a series of debates that led to a consensus decision of how to move forward. I think that's it's a welcome breakthrough. Recently, the United States of America, Norway, and Canada were received in the military mobility project. And that proves that the more the member states invest and cooperate in defense, the stronger and more reliable we'll become as partners. Of course, the end objective is to develop higher and more sophisticated military capabilities, defense capabilities on all fronts, serving the capabilities basket, trying to achieve our desired level of ambition, but I think we're on our way. What's truly important, and I'll end on that note, is that we have concrete results in position. The EDIDP, the European Defence Industrial Development Programme, has already proved its potential. We've tried as a country to make most of the benefits presented to us. We've received funding for 4 projects in 2019 and 1 more this year. We have invested a lot in producing attractive proposals to be funded with the EDIDP. I think that's what the EDIDP requires of its member states. We've tried to achieve synergies with member states and partners, and I think that is the way to move forward, establish stronger partnerships, and slowly, gradually, but steadily improve our common position in defense. So, in retrospect, I think we should all rejoice and respect our efforts of the previous years, but rest inquisitive, remain restless on what lies in the future. And if we want, at the end of the day, to become credible security and defense providers, we must understand, we must all understand that, first of all, we must be secure. We must attain the capability to protect the citizens of the European Union, and also to become a net security provider and stability provider for the wider region. And if we do this, I think, and in that the drafting of the strategic compass will be a very visible milestone, I think we will have achieved our most precious aim. So let us move forward in unison by understanding each other's needs and requirements, synthesizing all that the way Europe has been doing this for decades now, and at the end we will be successful in our quest, I think, with your invaluable support, Mr. Chairman of the EDA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for your introductory remarks. And indeed now, Minister Tonin, and you are just starting your presidency. A lot of expectations, indeed, and strategic compass as one of the major tasks that you are now taking over from the Portuguese presidency. So please, the floor is yours, Minister Tonin.
Thank you, dear colleagues, dear Nikolaos. Thank you for inviting me to this exhibition to feel again how it was before the COVID. I think today's exhibition in a way was returning us back to the normal life, and I hope that it will stay like this even in the autumn. So vaccination, I think, is still the only thing which can save us. Yeah, I was thinking about defense ministers within the European Union, and I'm the youngest one, I think. It's a little bit strange, but anyway, at least I know how peace can be fragile, because I'm the generation who was born in Yugoslavia. You probably know that country at that time. Start the school in Yugoslavia, but luckily finished his first grade in independent Slovenia. So we celebrated a few days ago our 30th anniversary of our independence, and we were fighting for this independence. And even though that I'm the youngest defense minister, I know that peace is fragile, and that we should do more for our security and for our stability. And I think that stable Europe is the best thing for the safest world, not just Europe, but the safest world. But in today's world, if you want to be a global player, beside economic strength and diplomacy who is speaking with the same voice, you need a strong military as well. And this is the part which European Union is really having problems. That's why I'm really happy that in the last couple of years, many European initiatives have developed. I can name a few of them, but you probably know them: PESCO, EPF, EDF, CART, EDA, CDP. So many different initiatives. And the crucial point is that one of the most important goals ahead of us is to achieve a greater coherence between different priorities and goals set by different initiatives. So I think now we are at the point where we have tools, but we have to use these tools in appropriate way. And if we will use it in appropriate way, then I'm not afraid for European security.
Thank you very much, Minister Tonin. And indeed, European Defence Agency is here to support you in that proper use. But also, actually, we are now trying to do our best in order to a bit simplify and streamline those initiatives and the way how they are being actually implemented by the member states in order to mitigate the administrative workload or even burden upon the member states. Now, I would invite virtually Minister Cravinho for delivering his introductory message, please.
Begin by thanking Greece and my friend Nikos Panagiotopoulos for his initiative in getting us together to discuss such an important matter. I'm very sorry that I'm not able to take part in the roundtable today. I'm sure, though, that this is one of the many ministerial encounters that we need to have in this moment of definition of the European defense identity. On a side note, no less important, I want to express my singharitiria for Greece's 40th anniversary of joining the EEC. But getting back to the issue at hand, let me set the question in a broader framework. A geopolitical Europe requires a credible common security and defense policy. The environment in which we are operating is changing very quickly. Geopolitical competition is driven by fast-paced technological innovation, Disruptive strategies are seeking to destabilize our political systems and economies. The pressure upon our societies and resources due to climate change are there. And as we're all aware, the pandemic has served to underline the importance of resilient societies with the necessary means to endure and respond to crises, including military capabilities to support civilian authorities. Future threats to our societies, man-made or natural, accidental or purposeful, may well look like the pandemic we have been living through. The current crisis should not overshadow the lessons we learned from the Eurozone crisis a decade ago. European defense budgets have only recently begun to recover from a long period of insufficient investment. This has long-term implications, including loss of technological capabilities and critical industries, increased dependency on third countries, and gaps on research and development. This investment can ultimately lead to an erosion of the EU's scientific, industrial, and technological base, precisely the skills that are needed to ensure Europe's resilience against all sorts of crises and our leadership on a global scale. European economic recovery in the next couple of years should also mean continuing to invest in defense. We are now experiencing a strategic moment in European defense. Important and bold steps are being taken with a strong mandate from European citizens, and these steps are crucial. For the EU to be a relevant international security actor and to defend its interests in line with our values, it needs to have the necessary military tools and strong political leadership. Despite this favorable context, a great deal of work is still ahead, and there are many different dimensions, but I would like to focus on one aspect. A fundamental part of a resilient and capable European defense depends on a sound and structured European defense industry. The promotion of a competitive European defense industry is a key component for the quest for EU strategic autonomy. The official launch of the European Defence Fund was the last event of the Portuguese presidency of the Council of the EU in the area of security and defence. And of course I am proud of this, as it will have a major impact in the years to come. The work programme that has been adopted is an excellent starting point for promoting military interoperability amongst member states and for developing an inclusive and mutually beneficial defence market in Europe. Without this basis, we shall not be capable of turning our attention to the major strategic questions that we face as European Union. Our citizens have consistently shown, through the Eurobarometer polls, that they favour a clear affirmation of the European defence identity, and so we have a clear responsibility to live up to their ambitions. Sometimes I hear that there is a tension between being ambitious and being realistic. I think that at this moment of our collective life as European Union, it is not realistic not to be ambitious. So again, thank you to Greece, thank you Nikos, for helping us to focus on what we have to do together.
Many thanks to Minister Cavigno, and indeed, it would not be realistic not to be ambitious, and I think this is excellent motto. Last but not least, indeed, Minister Petrides of Cyprus, please, the floor is yours.
Dear Iri, dear colleagues, Your Excellencies, allow me first to express my congratulations to my friend Nikos, Defense Minister, that for the Live-Defea 2021 that is hosting us in Athens today. It's a great pleasure to be for the first time, dear Nikos, here, experiences in the Cypriot also exhibition. I would like especially to congratulate Madei for the presidency, and who have already talked, and we're sure that together we can push things forward. The sooner the better. You have our support towards this dimension. And also a small parenthesis for the to praise the EDA for the commitment and the professionalism that is helping other members to participate and to collaborate, to create stronger partnerships and synergies for all of us. I think this magnificent occasion brings together everyone in the defense industry, the collaboration that is of great essence to us and to, as Cyprus participates, as I said, for the first time. Of course, the ambition is to be credible in security and defense industry. This is, we believe, the way forward, and we are optimistic, despite that we have seen that in the beginning, the they were a bit reluctant, but nowadays I think that we are more enthusiastic about these EU initiatives in defense industries. We believe that the role of the EU, both globally and regionally, is of paramount importance, considering today's challenges. We have a lot of common threats and challenges together. So both with the strategic compass, with the CARD, but with the PESCO projects and the India NDP, we are looking forward to fully support the result-oriented approach that we've been actually looking at. Of course, we would like to enhance the EU strategic autonomy, as this is something that we are really looking into with collaboration with NATO, of course. And our vulnerabilities have increased due to the hybrid threats, and this is something that we want also to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Petrides. And now we will listen to a video message sent by Commissioner Thierry Breton. And indeed, the reason is that he is responsible for running the European Defence Fund and establishing the Directorate General for Defence Industry and Space. So, Thierry Breton.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad I can participate via this message to this event about European defence cooperation today. Over the last couple of years, Europe has indeed made several big and concrete steps towards more cooperation in defence. Of course, we have different defence cultures in Europe. We also have different historical bonds to this question. And yet, by listening and respecting all sensitivities, and thanks to a common understanding of the global issues at stake, we are progressing towards a true European ambition in defence. PESCO, CARD, European Defence Fund, they are all important and coherent initiatives to move forward. Without putting into question our historic alliances, Europe can no longer be constrained by the choices and decisions made by others, nor becoming a playing field for others' geopolitical ambitions. The EU should gradually complement its arsenal of soft power with hard power capacities to become progressively, let's say, a security actor on a global level. And for that, we need a strong, competitive and innovative European defence industry, capable to deliver state-of-the-art, full-spectrum defence capabilities. In this sense, the European Defence Fund is an essential contribution towards a greater European sovereignty. It is an essential lever in the defence of our citizens, our interests, and our values. And it contributes to make us a credible partner, particularly vis-à-vis our allies, for example, within NATO. With the European Defence Fund and its 8 billion euros, the European budget is now a major source of funding for defence research and development within the EU. The European Defence Fund is also an essential contribution towards European technological sovereignty and strategic autonomy. Just a few words to highlight 3 main points on the Defence Fund. First, the European Defence Fund is resolutely pan-European. It must benefit to all member states and to industry of all sizes, including, of course, SMEs. This is one of the keys to its success. The fund establishes cross-border cooperation as the new standard. Second, the fund is based on a principle of co-financing between the EU and the member states. Representing 13.5% of the EU's total defence R&D spending, it places the EU among the top 3 defence research and technology investors in the EU. The EDF should not be a financial gap filler for pre-existing cooperative projects, but, in the contrary, a multiplier. Third, the European Defence Fund is capability and technically driven. It will focus on high-impact projects. In doing so, we'll give operational superiority to our armed forces and invest in the cutting-edge technologies. 2 weeks ago, we adopted the first work program of the European Defence Fund and published 23 calls for proposals. Our calls represent an investment of 1.2 billion into defence R&D projects for 2021. For example, we allocated 700 million for the preparation of large-scale defence capabilities, such as next-generation fighter or ground vehicle fleet, digital and modular ships, and ballistic missiles. Around 100 million to critical technologies, such as AI, military cloud, secured semiconductors, infrared and radio frequency. Other sectors financed are, for example, space for 50 million euros, medical response for 70 million euros, or digital and cyber for more than 100 million euros. We also announced the selection and funding of a new batch of projects under the Precursors program, EDIDP. We awarded 158 million euros into 26 new cooperative projects. The outcome of this edition, of course, confirms the trend. First, consistency with other EU defense initiatives. 15 out of 26 projects proposed for funding are also PESCO projects, representing 100 million euros. Second, a high level of interest from industry, with participants from 25 member states and more than 420 entities selected. Third, cooperation is a reality, with, in average, 16 entities in 7 member states per project. Fourth, a very strong SMEs participation, with 150 selected SMEs representing more than 30% of funding. And this shows clearly that the fund is open for all. We also awarded 137 million euros to 2 major flagship initiatives, Eurodrone and ESSOR. In conclusion, I want to say that Europe is taking its responsibility in investing in the defense sector. The work conducted by the member states and the HRVP on the strategic compass is extremely important in order to give a direction to the European defense cooperation we are building. I consider on my side, for instance, that we should build a stronger space dimension into our European defense strategy. In the same vein, we should integrate more the cyber defense dimension into our defense cooperation. Because the time has come to demonstrate that EU is establishing itself as an active and credible security provider in all the segments, to shape our security environment and contribute to wider international efforts with, of course, our partners. The Commission will play its full role in our collective efforts towards setting an ambitious defense agenda for years to come. Thank you very much for your attention.
And indeed, thanks to go to Commissioner Breton. Now, I have prepared one question for each of you, Mr. Ministers, and I will start with the host. Greece is celebrating, as you mentioned in your expose, 40 years of being a member of the European Union. And now we have heard a lot about various initiatives. Last one, the European Defence Fund, providing catalyst, I would say, with a very strong financial stimulus. And now, how can all these EU defence initiatives support its member states, perhaps support its member states better? And of course, how this can help Greece in tackling your security challenges? Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Giria. Well, let me start trying to answer your question by pointing out the growing importance we are placing on our domestic defense industry and on European defense industry as a whole. I think it will provide the catalyst for enhancing European defense and probably fulfill our ambitions with respect to achieving a common culture in defense and indeed our European strategic autonomy. If you may recall, yesterday we had dinner aboard the legendary flagship of the Greek Navy in the early 20th century, the battleship Averov. And if you may recall, we pointed out during the tour that that was a ship built in an Italian shipyard with engines made in France, generators manufactured in Germany, and guns made in Great Britain. So in a way, in a strange and funny way, it was an ancestor to a PESCO project or a EDIDB funded project.
And it was before Brexit, yeah?
And it was before Brexit, yes, yes, true. In other times, difficult times, you know, I still maintain that times we live in are very complex and diverse and challenging, and especially in terms of modern geopolitics in the region. So the challenges are there. It's not let's say, completely secure environment. On the contrary, new threats are emerging, new domains of conflict, such as space, a strategic prerogative for NATO as well. New types of hybrid threats are emerging, and we have to keep and maintain and enhance our resilience. How can we do that? By cooperating more intensively together. I do believe that the enhancement of the European defense industry could be the catalyst for achieving greater understanding with respect to our eventual common defense policy. And as I've said, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go still. We will try to keep driving certain, let's say, aspects in achieving greater consistency and a more comprehensive defense cooperation. We will keep on incentivizing force generation. We will keep on driving forward synergies in the context of PESCO and the DIDP. We will keep on insisting on cooperating in fields such as maritime security. Very important in the Mediterranean theater of operation, I should say. Historically, whenever the Mediterranean has been a stable and secure region of the world has gone forward in growth, in terms of growth and prosperity. Wherever there was trouble during the Mediterranean, there was conflict spreading in wider regions and certainly affecting Europe. So we must make sure the Mediterranean is a stable and secure environment. So we need to improve maritime situational awareness, enforce and enhance a standing European Union maritime presence. Those could become tangible objectives in the Strategic Compass initiative. We must improve resilience in order to deal with growing hybrid threats. Each country has its own array of what a hybrid threat is perceived. In our minds, we faced and actually addressed successively our own version of hybrid threat with the attempted invasion, attempted breach of our land borders in the northeast last March. We had to look at it as such and address it in a decisive manner. And thanks to the planning and awareness and excellent capabilities of our armed forces, as coordinated by our military leadership, I think we achieved a successful result and also galvanized Europe in this notion that we share a European border and we should all do what needs to be done in order to protect and defend it when it's threatened. Now, more things that we can do, of course, the reinforcement of the European Union industrial base, touching on European defense is very important. Integration of PESCO and EDF will allow us Europeans to develop and deliver capabilities within a competitive environment. There's so much we can do, but I think it all centers to a common desire to develop a common culture of what constitutes defense for Europe and security for the wider region. We all like to see ourselves as net security providers and contributors into a general international environment of peace and security. Europe has come out of centuries of bitter and bloody conflict and finally realized that it needs to band together in order to generate a peaceful and stable future, not only for itself, but for the wider region, the whole world indeed. And I think if we realize this, realize how long a way we've come, how much progress we have achieved, but stay also alert on what needs yet to be done, then we will be able to achieve a common defense culture and be able to be providers and contributors to peace, security, and prosperity in the whole world, and certainly in the regions affecting and being affected by us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Now, my question to you, Minister Toninen, it's obvious. What are the priorities of your presidency in the area of defense cooperation? Indeed, not only EU defense cooperation, but regarding EU-NATO cooperation, and how can, in your view, those initiatives that we discussed today, how can they reinforce not only EU side of the game, but also NATO?
Together, resilient, and Europe is a slogan of Slovenian presidency, and it sums our goals in a way. Together, which means that unity is the strongest weapon which European Union has, especially dealing with different issues, let's say challenges, dealing with our neighbors, for example, Nicolaus, Turkey, maybe Russia, and that's why, as I said, unity is our strongest weapon. And we can deal with different challenges only together. That's one point. Resilience, of course, a different type of crisis erupted in the last couple of years, from economic crisis to the health crisis with the COVID. And we have to learn. And we have to implement lessons learned in our everyday life. Simply, first to recover and then to make our societies resilient to different crises. And of course, in the end, Europe is our broader homeland. In the field of defense sector, we have three different priorities in the presidency. One is to even make better, put it on a high level, EU-NATO cooperation, then Western Balkans, and of course, for many my colleagues, EU-NATO cooperation is absolutely normal priority. It's must be priority. But then we come to the second priority. It's Western Balkan. And somebody is asking us why this is important, especially we were talking this morning with our colleagues from Cyprus. They have a different type of problems, but we would like to emphasize and underline that Western Balkan is fragile, that many other countries are, in a way, doing, put it diplomatically, different things. We can name Russia, we can name China, we can name as well Turkey. And if we won't focus on the Western Balkan, then somebody else will. And third priority is, of course, energy efficiency. You know, we are talking all the time on the European level about green transition, about Green Deal, and we feel that we have to do our fair share as well in the defense sector. And we have many opportunities, and it will be beneficial for our nature and for our armed forces to make a different type of systems, equipment, specific fuel. We can all use these initiatives within the, we were talking before about that, to develop such kind of things, to go in the line with the, let's say, green defense as well. So these are our main three priorities. And of course, we were mentioning today a strategic compass. This is, let's say, inherited priority. And with the strategic compass, we want that this will be really valuable and operational document. We don't need document on 50, 70, maybe 100 pages, which everybody will say, okay, nicely, we have a strategic compass now, and from tomorrow on, we are dealing with different issues. So we would like, or we would go for a shorter document, which will be really valuable for all member states. And I'm pushing forward. I was speaking with my colleagues. They're in favor with that idea that we need a rough draft document as soon as possible, that we can start debating about specific issues, what is okay, what is missing, what we have to underline and strengthen. Because until now we had many discussions, debates, meetings where we were talking about principles. It is very important to talk about principles, but now it's the time to form a document. So that will be more or less our duties in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Tonino. And now, concerning the Portuguese Minister Cravinho, he has been, during the presidency, a very strong advocate of better, deeper embedding or using those defense initiatives, European defense initiatives, in national systems. In a way, actually, Portugal is pioneering this embedding and using of those tools. And my question to him was, what would he say is the added value of those EU defense initiatives for national defense, but also for the defense industry, and where he would say, do we need to further increase our efforts? So, Minister Cravinho.
Yes, Portugal has certainly advocated for greater coordination across the board, and this is going to be key for generating national buy-in for the new EU defense tools. Portugal combines increased defense spending in line with national priorities and commitments with active engagement in European defense. We've made great efforts to ensure that investment in defense translates into a more skilled workforce with better and more stable jobs. I think that it is fundamental to be able to demonstrate this link to our public opinions. I'm sure that the same is true in other countries. In the United States, for example, there is a widespread understanding that defense spending is good for the economy. We need to develop the same understanding in Europe. Developing the European defense economy is not just good for defense policy, it is good economic policy. We need both. A key step is to ensure the new planning instruments for the EU defense, including the EDF, are fully integrated into national planning cycles. We have a national defense procurement law with 4.7 billion euros. So this is the size of the Portuguese defense market in the coming years. And this is a unique opportunity for Portuguese SMEs to integrate value chains for the European defense economy and to develop new areas of activity. The results of this will be very positive for economic growth in Portugal. I'm sure the same is true in many other European economies. Defense sectors are particularly oriented towards export growth, and they tend to be innovative. And this is something that we all wish for our companies, especially our SMEs. Portugal is also actively engaged in PESCO. We lead 2 projects which are in critical sectors for European security and defense: cyber security and cyber defense, as well as unmanned anti-submarine systems, which are critical for maritime security. But most importantly, we have been very successful in the recently published results of the EDIDP program, which is the precursor of the European Defence Fund. We've had 18 Portuguese companies participating in approved projects. And that's a great encouragement and a good sign for the future. Portugal, like 20 other EU member states, is also a NATO member. And each of us has only one set of forces and many aims to address. Establishing priorities is fundamental. Addressing the issue of burden sharing between the EU and the NATO alliance is also of utmost importance. By better aligning the capability development cycles of the 2 institutions, we will be better prepared to ensure the necessary innovation cycles in the current very competitive geopolitical context. Portugal recently organized, through IDD, Portugal Defence, which has a stand here at Live-Defea, a conference which gathered for the first time industry representatives in the format of defense industry dialogues. As the European Defence Fund gets up and running, it is very important that European holding companies, such as the IDD, should join forces in order to establish a good dialogue with the European Commission on priorities. Balanced geographical representation is needed. National capacity needs to be reinforced, as well as ensuring that national representatives of the defense technological and industrial base have a voice in the dialogue with EU institutions and have the opportunity of representing and advocating on behalf of their interests. Now is the time to organize for this.
Absolutely. Now is the time also for Cyprus. And indeed, you've been quite active across those initiatives that were mentioned, but also you are very active in participating and supporting projects, ad hoc projects within the European Defence Agency. So what would be your main takeaways, Mr. Minister, on using the EU Defence Initiative so far, and how you see their importance for your national defense in the future?
Well, as you said, we're pushing forward for PESCO and EDA projects. We're a very small island, and despite this, our participation of the relevant initiatives. Despite the fact that we do not have a defense industry in the strict sense of the term defense industry, we have managed, of course, over the recent years to successfully have about 9 PESCO and 8 EIDP projects. So we are actually cooperating, and I think the terms unity, PPP, private-public partnerships, together is something that we are building upon our bilateral relations through this collaboration. And the key enablers to develop and facilitate this cooperation between the private sector and the government, the public sector, but as well as the research center, bringing in the research center and the academia, which is very important to have everybody on board, gives this new opportunity for the future for the high-tech industrial. We have actually done 3 major steps quickly to be able to get these projects. The first one was that we have established a research and innovation unit within our ministry. The second one was that we have created our own national defense scheme, named Athena. So we have incorporated everything, and we are supporting financially not only Athena projects. And third, we had created our national ecosystem of small and medium enterprises that they were able to be accommodated through these PESCO projects and the IDP projects. Of course, all of this would not have been possible if the EU didn't have these initiatives over the last years. If you recall a couple of years ago that we would have been we had this opportunity to proceed, someone would have said that this wouldn't be possible. But today we clearly see that through our participation in different projects, we can enhance our bilateral cooperation within the EU and joining forces together for more synergy and in addition diversifying our military cooperation. We believe that it goes without saying that these projects, like Cyprus has these important opportunities as a small country, can be with a relatively cost-effective way. I mean, the reasonable cost is quite competitive considering what the end result will be. So we as a small country and other small countries will have the benefit of these end products and research products through this project. So we believe that this is only the beginning and that this will be elaborating over the next years to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Now I have one last question for all of you. The same question, and perhaps I will start in the inverted order so that we will end up with the host. And the question is indeed very simple, but perhaps difficult to answer. We'll see. We are gathering here in the framework of a defense industrial exhibition. So what would be your message as a politician, as a leader, as the person responsible for your respective national defense to the defense industry?
Well,
if we may start with Minister Petrides, please.
I believe that the signals to be achieved today is the close public-private sector cooperation. I think we have all mentioned this in detail. It's something that we are looking into it, a forward-looking approach and exploring more the opportunities that exist in the EU. Cypriot companies are here today in the Live-Defea 2021, and together with the research centers, they are taking an interest of this very good opportunity. The European Defence Fund, we believe, will give a great advantage that will have a collective vision to build Europe of defense and to be able to provide security to its citizens. So we believe that Cyprus values EDAs, work immensely, and an all-inclusive approach is something that will enable everybody to participate. It is an all-inclusive approach. As a small country, together with Greece and other 10, 11 countries that will participate in different projects, we have shown that we can share experience, we can share know-how, we can learn from best practices and learn from each other, and therefore there is an integrating EU defense system that will allow us to be optimistic for the future and the years to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Minister Tonin, please.
My message will be very simple. Please see Slovenia as your opportunity, because right now we are in the process of modernizing our armed forces. It's a project of 6 years. In the parliament was just a couple of months ago passed a bill, a historical bill for Slovenia, with the biggest amount of money for investment in the defense sector. So I see today's fair and all today's participants as the one who can help us to modernize our armed forces, and you are more than welcome.
Thank you very much. Now we have a message on the same question by the Portuguese minister, I believe, Minister Cravinho.
It's urgent to recognize that a strong and vibrant European defense and technological and industrial base is a vital element in the EU's strategic toolbox. All of those present here at the defense exhibition already know this, but we must ensure that it is more widely understood. Today, the EU is the fourth largest investor in defense in Europe. And member states have given a clear mandate to EU institutions. For member states, defense policy is a critical part of the ambition's strategic autonomy and military self-sufficiency. Portugal's position during its presidency followed the strategic guidelines that were established since discussions began in 2018. And we're very pleased to see that so many of our priorities have been integrated into the final version. Firstly, supporting the full participation of SMEs, namely by ensuring facilitated access to EDF co-funded actions. SMEs represent the majority of the economic agents throughout Europe, and their access to the EDF ensures not only a tangible contribution to the post-COVID economic recovery of Europe, with highly skilled jobs, but also the kind of diversification that we need for innovative and diverse approaches to security challenges. And this continues to be a challenge. Secondly, making sure that supply chains are open to all eligible entities looking to enter this dynamic market. As Commissioner Breton has said, the EDF represents an opportunity to develop a truly European defense supply chain, where the participation of all will be taken into account. And for that vision to become a reality, both size and geographical diversity need to be valued. Thirdly, support to emerging disruptive technologies by supporting projects with a high level of technological risk. So we're pleased to see that up to 8%, about 70 million euros, of the EDF was allocated to disruptive technologies. Fourthly, leveling the playing field was also a major priority through the development of an inclusive and mutually beneficial defense market for all member states. It is very positive that the EDF projects have to engage at least 3 entities representing 3 member states, sponsoring the development of joint prototypes and cross-border SME activities in the defense domain. And finally, the identification of key priority areas for capability research and development in line with the existing initiatives in European defense, namely CARD, PESCO, and the Capability Development Plan. This is key to promoting synergies and to avoiding duplication and fragmentation, which we hope can also be complementary with NATO planning, which is of course relevant for 21 member states of the EU. These tools and instruments will only prove relevant for the strategic autonomy of the European Union if their development is led by a strong and cohesive political vision. The member states have a key role to play here, and during our presidency we worked hard on this, namely in the discussions on the strategic compass. And I would like to seize this occasion to thank Greece, Slovenia, and Cyprus for their contributions to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And indeed, last but not least, Minister Panagiopoulos, please.
Thank you, Giri. Indeed, the message I would like to convey is that the European defense industry has an extremely important role to play in assisting Europe to realize the ambitious goal of its strategic autonomy. And indeed, the role is more important even than anybody could imagine. Being realistic and simplistic also, I would say that I cannot see a European army taking formation very soon, but I can see many synergies, more synergies developing from the domain of defense cooperation among European defense sector companies. And that, I think, is a perfectly realistic and achievable goal. In Greece, we've made a very simple type of thinking with respect to our defense industry. We need to maintain, compelled, of course, by various reasons, our geopolitical challenges. We need to maintain armed forces of excellent capabilities, a certain size, very well trained, very active, very present. But in order to be able to support this type of a present armed forces, we need to rely on a very present and active and functional and outgoing and competitive domestic defense industry. So as far as the Greek government, current government, the Ministry of Defense is concerned, we need to do whatever it takes to assist our domestic defense industry. We maintain a very, an air force of very high quality, I'd like to believe. But in order for our air force to maintain that quality, we need to be able to support it through our own domestic airspace industry. And that's what we've been trying to do, despite the problems. Many of them have come in from the past, in that we are about to purchase 4 frigate-class ships, 4 new ships, but we feel that it's necessary for some of them to be built in our own domestic shipyards, so we have to work on that. And not only be built in our shipyards, but also have other elements of our domestic defense industry involved in the shipbuildings of a few frigates. We cannot make our calculations without that, and it's a very welcome development in our mind that one of our 2 main shipyards, the Skaramangas shipyard, has recently been acquired by a group headed by a very prominent Greek ship owner. I'm sure this will give the necessary boost to our shipbuilding industry, which had its own problems coming from the past. That is the general idea. We need to be able to give opportunities to our domestic defense industry in order to be able, for the domestic defense industry to be able to support the capabilities of our armed forces. We have the tools on a European level. EDF may provide financing tools, indispensable, I think, in developing high cutting-edge technology projects, which require a lot of research and development. We have the PESCO projects, the EDADP capabilities. We have to build on them, but also, at the end of the day, remember that we need to rely on our domestic defense industries, so give them the instruments to provide the general framework through which the concept of a common European defense will develop as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I cannot agree more. Strong national domestic defense industry, but well connected, if not integrated, within the European defense industrial base. I think that this is the best recipe for the future in order that we are and will be able to deliver the best what we can to the end user, and it is our military men and women in uniforms. Now, how to conclude this discussion? You mentioned the wonderful evening yesterday on board of the battleship cruise Averov. And at our table during the dinner, we discussed also Greek mythology, indeed, and which is defining one of the very important defining source of European identity, indeed. And we concluded that perhaps Odysseus should be our inspiration in our endeavor and also in what we discuss here today, because he was very brave and brave man and strong fighter. He was very clever and wise as well. He was, I would say, extremely resilient. 20 years of Odyssey, you know, with all the traps and all, but he managed to get through, so really, resilience. And he was also innovator. And innovation not always means new technologies, yeah? It was his idea, actually, to leave behind that gift to the Trojans, the horse. I mean, it was not a new technology, it was just ingenious idea. So with this in mind, I think that we should keep him as an inspiration for our endeavors. And it remains to me just to thank you very much for what you've said and what you've been doing, actually, in practice. And let me just ask the audience to join me in applauding you for this excellent conversation. Thank you very much, ministers. Thank you.
Odysseus, by the way, I'm sorry, just a closing comment. Odysseus, by the way, is the only one out of the warlords of Greece that participated in the siege of Troy to make it home safely. All the others were bigger, stronger, possibly braver, but didn't make it. Odysseus was the most resourceful one and finally made it home. Let's not forget that. Yep. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, you. What do you want?
I want to see the sun. I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well-aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.